Hi everyone, I am Kimberly, the 5-Minute NP. The 5-Minute NP was born out of my belief that small, incremental changes can drastically change the trajectory of your life. Our genes do not have to determine our lifespan. My goal through this podcast is to act as a roadmap that bridges the gap between knowledge and action, leading to you living your healthiest, happiest, longest life. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. Today on my first episode, I met with Caryn Dugan, StlVegGirl, founder of the nation's first Center for Plant-Based Living and Education. In addition, she was the founder of the first Forks Over Knives community program. We discuss the ways that a plant-based diet can help prevent, treat, and at times reverse chronic disease. In addition, she discusses why meat and dairy should be avoided, as well as why you might want to rethink adding oils to your diet. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. I hope you enjoyed this first episode. All right. Hey, Caryn, how are you?
Hey, Kim. Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So you've been considered the vegan chef, StlVegGirl. So I just kind of want to get started with your journey to plant-based living.
Wow. Yeah. Everybody has a story, right? And everybody has this kind of long journey. Mine started back in 2008 when I lost my dad to cancer. And then exactly 10 weeks after he passed away, I was diagnosed with cancer. So that was kind of the 1-2 punch that got me interested in this. And, I didn't immediately think about the food. I grew up like most kids of the 80s. That tells you how old I am. Both my parents worked, and we, a typical dinner would be Campbell's tomato soup and Velveeta grilled cheese, maybe. That was one of our favorites. Mrs. Paul's fish fillets, whatever, not too many greens, not too many vegetables. Not because my mom didn't try, but, didn't fight us too much. So that clearly, as we know now, is not good for the immune system. So I was doing damage to myself very early on. And we can now see that with the amount of chronic illnesses that we have here in the United States and clearly worldwide. So, but getting back, I had malignant melanoma, and it was surgically excised. Wow. And I can remember laying in bed at night, because, once that wound starts to heal and the nerves start to regenerate, that's very, very painful. So I remember laying there thinking, God, what is this? Why? What's happening? And growing up, I didn't remember really anybody having cancer or diabetes or being ill. But when you're laying there just by yourself, you start to kind of look back and you think, well, yeah, so-and-so's grandma did have cancer, or so-and-so did have diabetes, or, oh yeah, that person was always sick, or that person never made it to school every day because they always had something going on. But you don't really think about that growing up. And so I thought, there really, maybe there are a lot of sick people around me, and I didn't think about it before. So I thought, all right, if this can happen once, this can happen again, and it can happen in a different form. Just because I have malignant melanoma now doesn't mean that I can't get diabetes someday, or heart disease, or breast cancer, or whatever. So I thought, okay, well, this is scary, clearly. What can I do? What can I do to hopefully maybe boost my immune system? Is it that? Or take some kind of preventative measure so that I don't get sick again. And I didn't even look at the food. I looked at people who I thought were healthy, right? I looked at people who were doing yoga, and that really didn't resonate with me. And I looked at people who meditated, and I'm a huge spaz. I couldn't do that. I looked at people who are doing these alternative therapies, and nothing was really kind of sitting with me. And also growing up, you hear about, I think people always say, oh, eat your greens, eat your vegetables, fruits and vegetables. But nobody really tells you why. Or at least when I was a kid, again, back in the 80s, nobody told me why. I mean, yeah, there was Popeye, spinach, you're strong, but nobody was connecting the dots.
Right.
And then when you hear the same thing over and over again, you just kind of become desensitized to it. And if you don't know why you're doing something, you don't do something, you know, unless it's some kind of habit. So I remember none of these other practices, as I said, were really resonating with me. So I went to Dr. Google and I started putting in, you know, or searching immune boosting foods, supplements, practices, whatever it is, you know, anti-cancer, you know, whatever it was, just throwing things out there. And the what was coming up time and time again, the results that we're generating all had a common thread, and that was a vegan diet. And I grew up in the middle of the country, St. Louis, Missouri, a very conservative family. So I don't mean anything by this, because I've learned a lot in my many years of eating this way now, and learning about communities. I thought, well, those vegans are weirdos. I'm not going to become a vegan. And how do you not eat chicken? Come on.
Right.
So I've learned a lot since then. And but I was interested in the science. I wanted to know why the same thing kept coming up. Nobody said plant-based back in 2008. A vegan diet has shown to reverse whatever, obesity, all kinds of chronic illnesses, hypertension, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, not really reverse cancer, but lessen its duration and help with treatments and clearly prevention in some way as well. So it didn't really have any downsides other than not eating any animal products. So I started reading, and I will say one thing. In the beginning, I didn't know what I was reading. I didn't know how to interpret it all, because these were medical studies I was reading. And I was working at a medical practice at the time, and in marketing. And I made friends with a lot of the doctors. And I said, listen, you know, can you help me read these and show me what this says? And can you read it and tell me what it says? And so they were very kind, and they took time with me. And I think maybe they learned something also in that time. And so they taught me what to look for, how to look at studies, so that, you know, the first thing you do is you go to the end and you see who supports the study, and then you decide if you really want to keep reading it, and so forth. So I did that, and I read until I was like, okay, listen, I have just got to try this. I've just got to check off a box, say I did it, and then move on. Because again, clearly no chicken. So I did it. And in one day, I took all of the animal products out of our kitchen. And I don't mean just the chicken and the cheese and the burgers and it was anything that had any kind of dairy or eggs in it. So that's like all of our crackers, all of our, everything, all of our processed crap. And we didn't really have like a ton of food, because it was just my husband and I, and we were in the middle of rehabbing a house as well. So that was in shambles. But, really what we had was a lot of frozen food. I was known as the lean cuisine queen many, many moons ago, because I didn't grow up really cooking or learning how to cook. So nuked meals were the best. And all of those meals, cheese, meat. So they all went away. And I went to the grocery store. And as I was reading all of these studies, even though they said no animal products, they were also saying, no to animal products, yes to fruits and vegetables. So when I went to the grocery store, I went to the produce department, and I just started putting things in my cart, just one by one. And I was also reading Eat the Rainbow, because they represent other antioxidants, different antioxidants. Didn't know what that word meant. I just knew it was something that I probably needed. So I'm adding all these colors. I didn't even know what these things were that I was putting in my cart. And then I went down, I remember going down the aisle that has the canned tomatoes and the canned beans. And I was reading a little bit about fiber. And I was reading the canned tomatoes are okay, or jarred tomatoes, whatever. And so I thought, okay, well, throw those in there. And then I remember I went over to the bakery, and I had graduated from the white fluffy bread to the brown bread, which I thought was whole wheat, but then later learned that it was just colored brown so that it looked, yeah, it looked the part. Well, so I couldn't do that anymore. I went for what I called the hippie loaf, that 5-pound mass of loaf that had all these specks in it. And I thought, oh God, this is horrible. Of course, now I buy it and it's great.
Yeah.
Heaved that into the cart, got home and thought, well, now what? Because most of this food that I have, number one, is real food. Number two, has little to no labeling on it. And of course, no cooking instructions. So I was confused, and I was hungry, and I was frustrated, and I was scared.
Yeah.
So then I went back to Google and just started plant-based 101, or no, I'm sorry, vegan 101 recipes. And just started. And Kim, oh my God, let me just tell you, I sucked at it. I was horrible. It was horrible. I know how to read. I know how to open a can. I know how to stir something on top of a stove. And that's really what these recipes were just telling me to do, because they were 101. But I still didn't know what I was doing. Like I couldn't figure it out. And so my husband and I were, as I said, rehabbing this house in the city here in St. Louis City. And I mean, we had it down to the studs. There was nothing in this house. I don't recommend it. We only did it 4 times. And so our life was this: get up in the morning, we go to our gyms, come home, take our showers, get ready, go to work every day. He has his corporate job. I had my corporate job. And we would come home, 5, 6, whatever, take off, disrobe, put on our gross clothes to work in, and, tear down walls and pull down old hard, molding. I mean, these old homes. And then we'd be gross. And then we'd have to take another shower. And then about 10 o'clock at night, the news comes on here. We'd sit down, eat, go to bed, and do the whole thing over and over again. Okay, so I lost my dad during all this. Then I had cancer during all this. So, and I'm trying to help my mom because she lost her husband. I'm trying to help my brother because he lost his dad. I'm scared. I'm mourning the loss of my dad. And oh, by the way, I had cancer. Like, I could not get out of like anything, right?
It's overwhelming.
So it was really hard. And, but so anyway, life goes on. And so one night my husband, Tim, is sitting on this gross couch and he has the news on, and I wouldn't cook dinner at night. I would just assemble it. Right. And before that, I would just heat it up in the microwave. So I gave him this plate of food and he is down on the couch and he looks up at me and I'm handing it down to him. And I said, and stress levels were so high, you could just cut it with a knife. And I looked at him and he looks up at me, he goes, with these big puppy dog eyes, he goes, Caryn? I said, what? Just say it. Just say, what's going on? What is next? And he goes, you've got to stop with this food because you are going to kill us both. I said, I know, it's so bad, isn't it? And he goes, oh, it's so bad. And I mean, it was just kind of like that release of like that ugly cry, and laughing, and it was fine. And he goes, listen, logically, this makes sense to eat real whole foods. He's like, I don't understand the whole non-animal thing, but I can get behind the vegetables. He said, and I trust you, but we gotta figure something out here. And I said, I know. So with that, we put hot sauce over everything, ate our dinner, watched the news, went to bed. And little did I know, the next day, Tim looked for a vegan cooking class in St. Louis. And I didn't even think about going to a class because guess what? I wasn't going to do this for a long time. I didn't really want to do this anyway. I went kicking and screaming. So we went to the class several weeks later, and we are sitting in this class, and it was at Whole Foods here in St. Louis, and the class was full. Tim and I sat up front, and the instructor, who's still a friend of mine, was slinging plants like nobody's business. She was giving us dishes of food. She was making this big, beautiful meal. And I mean, every recipe, every dish was like 5, 6, 7 ingredients or so. And she's talking with us the whole time. It was like nothing to her. And my world was rocked. Not because I was like, oh, I'm going to do this forever, but like, I thought, oh, that's how you do it. I can do this for a little while. That kind of interests me. I'll give it a try. She calls me after class, asked me to be her assistant. And so for the next 2.5 years, I assisted her at both Whole Foods here in St. Louis, twice a month after work. I was her pack mule. So I would bring in everything, set the tables, hand out the recipes, do the dishes, whatever. And I just stood back and learned. And I stuck with this. And so this happened. So that was 2008, 2009, up to about 2010, well, about 11-ish, yeah. And in that time, in 2009, I started a Twitter to stalk other people, really, just to see what was going on, you know, in this like vegan world. And so, and, you know, Marketing 101 says, you know, the name of your business or your Twitter handle or your social media handle or whatever it is should say what you do or say what you like or share. And so I thought, well, STL for St. Louis, StlVegGirl. That has a nice ring to it. Nobody else has it. I'll just call it that. So I did. And in 2011, Bridget, who I was assisting twice a month, she moved out of town. Her husband was transferred. And Whole Foods says to me, where are you going? And I said, well, I am leaving because Bridget's leaving, and thank you very much. This has been wonderful. And they said, no. There's something going on here. We're getting a lot of emails. The classes are filling up. This is kind of the way the world is going. We want you to stay. We want you to teach classes. And I said, absolutely not. And they said, okay, here's the paperwork. And I said, now come on. I've never taught anyone anything, nor do I want to. Thank you very much. And they said, okay, bring it back next time you're in town or next time you're in the store. So I went home and Tim said, how's class? I said, it was great. We're coming up on the last one because, you know, teach. And he said, oh my God, you have to. And I said, oh my God, have we met? There's no way. And he said, come on. He said, every time you come home from class, you are glowing. You love this. And I said, I think that I do love this. And I don't know what's happening, but I cannot teach. And he said, well, okay, let's, you know, and I told him I had this paperwork. And he said, let's just figure out the paperwork. Let's just do it. And I'm like, oh. So we start going through it, and it's like nothing. It's super easy. It's just name, address, phone number, email address. And then it said business name. And I said, see, Tim, I'm not a business. This is not for me. And he goes, put something in there. Just put anything you want in there and give it back to them. So I thought, all right, fine. I'm going to put my freaking Twitter handle in there, StlVegGirl. And that's how StlVegGirl was born. So clearly all by accident.
Right.
So I started teaching, and oh my God, my first class, like I still get sweaty thinking about it. I was so nervous. Oh my God, so nervous. And you want to talk about imposter syndrome, 100%. And people who, I feel like people who shop at Whole Foods know more about this lifestyle in general than the person who goes to any other like regular grocery store. And that's not good, bad, or anything. It's just so, and where I'm going with that is that I was teaching at Whole Foods and I thought, oh oh my God, everyone in this room knows so much more than I do. You know, I don't know anything. What qualifications do I have? These people have paid their money and spent their time with me. And what am I giving back? And it was at that moment I thought, oh God, I think I like doing this, but I can't just teach something that I don't really know anything about.
Right.
Especially because what if there's somebody in this room who had cancer? What if there's somebody in this room who's sick?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not just, let's cook with Caryn. No, this could be here really trying to get some information.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the one thing I never, ever want to do with anyone ever is waste time. Time is way too precious. I learned that in 2008. So the last thing I want to do is waste anybody's time ever. So after that, I thought, all right, I have to become educated. So I went home to Tim and I said, okay, change of plans. I need an education. And so he said, well, start looking around, you know, I mean, and this was 2011 and there really wasn't much. There wasn't anything here in St. Louis. I could have gone to a culinary school here in town, but I would have learned not a whole food, plant-based way of cooking.
Right.
And so I looked around, and I can remember I used to go to, and I still did, go to the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Dr. Neil Barnard. I used to go to their website often and just as a source of information. And I remember that they still have this training, Food for Life training. And really looked into that and I thought, well, that might really be something. Mm-hmm. And that's an in-person, about a week long. And you don't just apply, or you don't just like register, you have to apply. So I filled out the application, 2-hour phone interview, had to create a video of me cooking and what I was cooking and why I liked it and the benefits. 3 letters of recommendation I had to give from people who are not related to me. I mean, there was a lot, like there was a big deal because, you know, once you go through the Food for Life program, you represent PCRM. Wow. So they really want to make sure that you are in it. And you have to be plant-based for 2 years for health reasons also. So made it in, did the program, and came back, got off the flight, and very soon after that, the executive director of our cancer support community here in town called me up and said, you need to have a meeting. And I said, okay, went in, and she gave me a blank calendar. We sat down at their long table, their conference table. She gave me a blank calendar and she said, I need you to teach here. I know this went through. Do whatever you want to do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. And I mean, again, first of all, the cancer support community calling me in, and then them just offering me free will to teach whatever I wanted to teach, whenever I wanted to teach it, was really incredible. That was full circle for me. I could not believe that I had the opportunity to actually share the knowledge that I had just received to people who are just as scared as I was.
Right. And the information is life-saving, really.
Oh, for sure it is. Yeah, you bet it is. It is so powerful. And for months, Kim, I would come home after teaching there. And I mean, it was like, 2-3 times a month, maybe, and then, and they're a 501c3. So it's whatever they receive in donations or through their support, to then pay me. So it was kind of, it ebbed and flowed. But for the first several months after teaching there, I would come home and just bawl my eyes out because it was such a heavy load for me.
Right.
And I was taking it so seriously. I still take it so serious. It's a serious thing,
yeah.
So, and I still teach to this day in 2020. So, and I love it. I love every single moment there. And I can remember also the very first time I stepped foot in there in 2011, I remember thinking and looking around and thinking, oh, this is so cool. I love this kind of vibe, and I love everything that's going on here. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be so neat if one day there would be a place that was all plant-based, mm-hmm. all this information, all the studies, all the books, the researchers, like everything plant-based? Wouldn't that be so cool? Huh? Well, I thought, well, maybe someday somebody with more clout and more money and more whatever, maybe that'll happen, So onward. And StlVegGirl just grew from there, and I started teaching in different venues all around town, putting on events, hooking up with restaurants and doing private events there. Then in 2018, my friend Dr. Jim Loomis, who works as Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine with Neil, he's the medical director there. He used to be here in St. Louis. He is the former doc for the Cards and the Rams. He and I put together a plant-based nutrition summit here in St. Louis at Washington University. Sold that out at 350 people. Wow. We had Dr. Michael Greger in. We had Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn in. Ann was in here. Ann Esselstyn, Dr. Scott Stoll from the Plantation Project. And Dr. Fred Williams here. He's a GI doc here in St. Louis. Oh, yeah. It was a fantastic event. Yeah, it was a day-long event. It was so great. And with that sellout, I thought, okay, it's ready. St. Louis is ready. We can do this. I can do this. And I was still kind of teetering, but about 6 months before the event, I had really decided to open up a brick and mortar shop. But the sellout of the Nutrition Summit really solidified that. But so, 6 months before that, I called two of my good friends here in this whole plant-based world. And one is Brian Wendell of Forks Over Knives, and the other is Susan Benegas of the Plantation Project. And I called them separately and I said, listen, I'm thinking about doing this thing, this brick and mortar, all plant-based, everything. And I said, I think that we're ready here in St. Louis. I said, can you tell me anybody? And I've looked, I can't find anybody else who's doing this, because I'd like to pay them for their time, go and see them, ask them if they would mind sharing their ideas with me, how they did it. Why reinvent the wheel, And they said, no, there's no one doing what you have just described. And I said, now, come on, that's silly. Somebody's got to be doing that, right? I'm in the middle of the country. There's nobody in Berkeley, California, or Brooklyn, New York, who's doing something like this. Come on. And they both said, no, we don't know of anyone doing that. And if there's two people that know everything going on in this plant-based world, it would be them. And so I said, all right, well, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to open up the nation's first plant-based nutrition and education culinary center. And they said, okay, I did ask them. I said, why do you think that there isn't one? And I knew the answer, and we all kind of talked it, where we talked separately with, I talked separately with each of them, but it really is because people who are doing what I'm doing are service-based. It's easy enough for us to go around to different venues and help people, but the idea is, the whole reason I started StlVegGirl, or the reason I started doing this, is because in 2008, I was so scared. I was so frustrated. I was so confused. I was looking for somebody to help me. And I am trying to feel that way now. That is exactly why I still do this. So when I got to a point of having a lot of classes around town and getting a good social media following, I thought, you know what, it's time for that brick and mortar. Because if somebody's really scared, really confused, really frustrated, why do they need to get online and search for me or somebody who's teaching classes like this in the nearest grocery store or in the community center or whatever. No, know that you can come here to the Center for Plant-Based Living and get all the information you need. We don't, I know where you can get it. So that's why on the anniversary of my dad's passing, August 13th, 2019, we opened up again the nation's first plant-based center. So that's a lot. Thank you for letting me share that.
Right now, right? You're in your shop right now, right?
That's where I am right now. Yep, this is it.
So how did you end up getting involved with Forks Over Knives?
I met Brian. Oh, you know what? So in 2011, Forks Over Knives came out. And Rip Esselstyn was, I guess he was traveling with the movie and it was showing at a theater here in town. So I dragged my mom along. She didn't want to come, but she loves it now. We went to this kind of like indie little movie house where they were showing Forks. And then I met Rip, and Brian was not there. But then I met Brian the next several months later at the first International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference in Naples, Florida. And I met he and there's this guy, Robbie Barbero, who was working with him also. And Robbie now is one of the 2 Mastering Diabetes guys. Okay. So I've known Robbie before Mastering Diabetes, but you know, we all just kind of like, we were at this small little conference, which by the way, now this year, it's the 8th annual International Plant-Based Nutrition Healthcare Conference held in California. And last year they topped 1,200 people coming. So it's this huge conference, but we all started together in this first one back in 2012. And we just kind of like started this little crew, you know, like, or maybe I met, I don't know, maybe it's 12 or 13. I'm not quite sure, but we all kind of like met each other and just always kept in contact. And Brian and I have just become, you know, friends over the years. And you know, we talk intermittently and it's just, you know, I kind of feel like this shop here is almost, not officially, of course, but it's almost like a little like Forks Over Knives satellite, because I did write with Brian the only in-person 6-week Forks Over Knives program that I've been putting on since 2014, I believe, 14 or 15, and it sells out every time. And the reason I contacted Brian and approached him several years ago about this is because you know, I was kind of thinking about all the classes that I do and, you know, who comes to them and why they come to them and why they stick with a plant-based diet, why they don't. And especially the people who have adopted a plant-based diet and have experienced incredibly great health results. And I mean like reversal of type 2 diabetes, reversal of, you know, fill in the blank, you know, weight lost, happiness regained, money not spent on that, but rather on vacations and, you know, walking their kids down the aisle and really just life-changing stuff. And then I've watched some people, you know, like slide back down the hill and go back to their old eating habits. And of course, disease returns. So I really, you know, and I have this, I'm also a certified coach, and I thought, you know, I think that it's probably lack of support. Because when you make a lifestyle shift, whether it is, you know, you want to stop drinking, you want to stop smoking, you want to start exercising more, or whatever it is, or you're going to start eating better, typically you don't have a group of people doing that together. Right. It's usually one person in a family, one person in a group of friends. And by the way, when they make that shift, they're the weird one, right? So it's very hard. You're doing something different and you're not quite right. So it's very difficult to stay the course unless you have a support system. So that's why and everybody knows Forks Over Knives. I mean, you want to talk about a solid brand. Wow.
I mean, it made a huge impact on lives, that's for sure. And even me, and I tell patients about actually all of the documentaries. I'm like, this is a great place to start.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fantastic. It's the way that he did that movie is genius, even though it's so simple. It's so relatable to so many people. And it's not preachy, doesn't talk at you, you know, and it's not splashy. So yeah, so that's why I contacted Rex, and people know your brand, and I see a need here in St. Louis. What do you think about a 6-week program? And we wrote it together, and we still talk about it now. You know, I still give him numbers, and I still tell him how things are going, and it's great. So it's been kind of sad to not have it right now during this pandemic, but eventually we'll get back to it. And I don't know if I would, even if I were able, with his blessing, to take that virtual, I really don't think it would have the same feel, because being here in person is so important. And by the way, that's the other reason I opened this, is because there is a difference between being virtual, which is very helpful, and being here in person. And eating the food and talking with people, and like being able to read their eyes when they talk and knowing their mannerisms. And I know that this is such a, you know, that it's such a virtual world now, such a digital world. And to open up a brick and mortar, a tangible thing, is really pretty risky. I was told again and again and again and again and again. But it works, and it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, clearly you're passionate about what you're doing, and your work is meaningful. What can you tell me about what you do, like what your programs have to offer, what it's like for people going through your programs?
Yeah, so the Forks Over Knives program is really I mean, it's, you know, like a 101, plant-based 101. And it's also, I've had a couple of people take it twice, a couple of years apart, because again, support, and life penetrates, and you hear all this stuff about keto and paleo and supplements, and then you think, wait, why was I doing what I was doing with Forks Over Knives? Or why was I doing what I was doing, you know, when I was following a plant-based diet? Like, why was I doing that again? Because I keep reading and hearing all other stuff. And whole plant eating, it was true when I started. It's true now, and it's going to remain true forever. It's science shows that it is the most healthy to eat.
Right.
So that reminder, you know, I mean, I can remember needing that reminder millions of times as I've, you know, been doing this. So of course, not so much, but the first several years I was confused too. I didn't really know what was what. I was reading all kinds of studies and watching the movies and reading the books. And, I'm not really sure. Now I'm sure, but it's important that people feel like they can come back. So I have that program, and cooking classes, hands-on cooking classes, demonstration cooking classes. We have speaker series. I'm going to be offering CME, continuing medical education units, for healthcare providers. We were going to do that before COVID took over. We'll do that after.
That's great.
And yes, so we have some fun things. We're actually gearing up for the first anniversary of, we call this place The Shop, in August, and we have a big virtual event coming up for that. I'm in the middle of planning that right now.
Well, I thought it was so cool during the quarantine how you provided free cooking classes virtually. That was great. And I loved how you used like 7 ingredients in your classes, because I think part of the biggest obstacle with switching over, like you kind of mentioned in the beginning, is you clean everything out. Like most people, they get motivated because they see the health benefits, they hear the health benefits, but yet they really don't know what to eat. And not only that, how do you prepare it? Where do you start? You go into the grocery store, you wander around aimlessly. and you still just really have no clue what you're doing. And there's a lot of cookbooks, and they're great cookbooks, but yet some of that's even overwhelming because, you know, there could be 20 ingredients in one meal. So it is a process, and I think it could be overwhelming. And some of the obstacles with that is knowing what to eat. And I think that's what's great about what you do. You try to make it simple. You actually teach people. And I think that's a huge benefit, because that really shows people like how to do it. And again, the support is huge, just like with quitting smoking or doing anything. I mean, research has shown when you do it as a group, it's more successful. It's been, you know, you're going to stick with it most likely when you have support. So I think that's just incredible that you've done this. Let's talk about your new show that you're starting on Tuesday mornings.
Okay. Yeah. So the first week of the quarantine here, I was kind of boohooing and moping around the house, not knowing which end was up. You know, I just refunded everybody all of their money for all the classes that were supposed to, you know, go, and just kind of feeling sorry for myself. And but then the second week, I woke up on Monday morning and I hopped out of bed and I thought, nope, okay, none of that, no more of that. Did it, done, we're ready to go. And I, you know, newscasts were coming out and saying, oh my gosh, or news reports were coming out saying, you know, all these, so many people are out of work, and they're stuck in their homes. And I thought, okay, free classes. And I knew that, you know, the food that I like to cook is very simple, and they're staples. So it really, a plant-based diet, a whole food plant-based diet, really is, it's a pauper's diet. I mean, it's rice and beans and greens and grains and fruits and vegetables, and it's nuts, seeds, and avocados, like, and tubers. Like, that's it. You know, that's not expensive. So, but again, it can be intimidating if you don't know how to cook it, right? So I thought, all right, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to just do 7 ingredients, and we're going to do it in 30 minutes or less. And it really worked out. It took off. I watched a few YouTube videos on how to do lighting. I'm not very good at it, but I'm always trying. And then I went to Amazon. I bought some cheap lights and put them up. And my husband helped me every week, twice a week. And we went live at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays and Sundays. And we did 15 episodes. And had a really great time. And I started a hashtag called, the hashtag is PBQ Cooking Show, because about halfway through I thought, wait a minute, there's something here. And I started the hashtag because I thought, I can keep this going, and then I can change the Q from quarantine to quick. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I did. And I changed, so we're not doing the quarantine show anymore, but now I do the plant-based quick cooking show, and it's every Tuesday, and I do them recorded now. I record a couple of them so I can edit them down kind of, and then I release them on Tuesdays. And sometimes it's going to be, you know, how you do a dry saute, how you cut an onion. The first one was dairy-free sour cream.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, for Taco Tuesday. Yeah, so I mean, they're just quick little recipes that are not overwhelming, that you can fold into your week somehow, some way, just little tidbits here and there. And then hopefully, I hope that people will become so curious that they will sign up for a class, either by coming in if you're local, or virtually if you're not.
Yeah, that's great. I love the few ingredients. That's key for me. I mean, people are busy, you know, people are, you know, maybe they haven't been the last few months, but you know, most of the time everybody's running around, they're in sports, they're working, it's busy. So the thought of coming home and preparing some huge thing is overwhelming, but so using as few ingredients is awesome. And also, yeah, using proper pans and learning about the water, using water instead of like vegetable oils and stuff. And we could touch on that a little bit, the vegetable oils, because everybody says, you know, they think they're healthy, olive oil and coconut oil. And what would your response to that be?
I used to use oil very liberally, but I've learned to not. Oil, all oil, sesame, canola, olive, you name it, doesn't matter, is going to have 120 calories. That's really not a lot.
Yeah.
And so if you are about to saute your vegetables, you're probably not going to put in a little bit of oil. And you're probably not going to only put in, that's probably not the only time you're going to put in oil. You're probably going to put in oil some other time as well. But you're not going to only put in a little bit of oil. You're going to coat the pan, and it's going to create a nice buffer so that your vegetables don't stick, right? Yeah. Okay, so you probably just added maybe 300-400 calories there. Next, you're doing really, really well. You're going to make your own salad dressing because you've learned with reading labels, if there's a 26-letter long word, obviously that's probably not a good thing for you. So you've learned, I'm going to make my own salad dressing. Great. You get your greens, you get the beautiful bowl of something there, and you start making your salad dressing. And you put in a half cup of olive oil, and then you put in your spices and your vinegars. So you're pouring that on your salad or on your greens. And what is that? Another 800,000 calories? Oh my gosh, that's huge. So you wonder why you're not losing weight. You wonder why you still have high blood pressure. Now remember that oil creates a nice slickness on that pan. That's exactly what it's doing to the inside of your mouth. So you really can't taste those flavors. That's why we love to have our sugar, fat, and salt, right? Because you need to get through that oil and really think that you're tasting the food. Now, if it's doing that to the inside of your mouth, what do you think it's doing to the inside of your body? It's easy enough to get that out of your mouth by brushing your teeth and brushing the inside of your mouth if that's what you want to do, or gargle. But the inside of your body, you're killing your endothelial cells, and you're just damaging yourself 1, 2, 3 times a day if you're cooking all your meals. And if you're going out to eat, listen, here's the thing. I know that there are studies out there that have shown that extra virgin olive oil does have some benefits, and that's fine. And and if you go out to eat and you have oil, then that's the way it is, whatever. But if you don't have any, then you don't have the calories, you don't have the extra fat, and you're probably not adding extra salt to your dishes so that you can actually taste something. The real food is beautiful, but so is, by the way, when you go out to eat, so is being with your friends and your family and having social interaction. That's clearly very healthy. So, I tell people, do what you can when you're out at a restaurant. Talk with your server, let them know what you want. Ask if there's some way that they can cut down on the oil a little bit, or what can you order. But then in your own home, try not to use it. And that's one of the things that I try to show people in almost all of my classes, is how to do a dry saute.
That's awesome. Is soy sauce a good, transition, or something that can be used instead?
I like to use coconut aminos, which is lower in sodium, and it has almost a little bit of sweetness as well. It can be used for all reasons, if you will. But in roasting vegetables, I will typically toss them in like a balsamic vinegar, and then throw them in the oven or the air fryer.
So, we've been talking a lot about, you're a vegan chef, and, let's just talk a little bit for people that probably may not know why they should avoid animal products and dairy. So could you touch on that a little bit?
Well, of course, highly inflammatory. And, so let's talk about calcium for a second. Or, protein. You know what? Let's just get to the protein thing, right? Everybody's worried, or they're concerned about protein. Protein, yes, we need protein, but guess what? We get enough. If you're getting enough calories, you're getting enough protein. If somebody says, oh, I need to get more protein, you know what you're also going to get? You're also going to get more calories, right? So it's not that you're protein deficient. If you're deficient, it might just be that you're calorically deficient.
Right.
and unless you are an Olympic athlete or professional athlete, chances are you don't need copious amounts of protein, which actually, again, only equates to more calories, more energy to do what you need to do. Animal protein versus plant protein. Plant protein, still vegans or plant-based people get a little bit more than they need to, only because we're eating a lot. But if we do get too much, or we get enough and our body's like, okay, you know, we need to get rid of it, then we expel it. But with animal proteins, when you get too much, or really any at all, those are made up of amino acids, right? Acidic, yes? When they expel from our body, they first need to be neutralized. And how do you neutralize an acid? You find a base. So then you have to go to the calcium in your body, which is stored mainly in your bones, but then also in your teeth and in your blood. Your body takes that calcium, mixes it along with the protein, creates more of a base, and then you can expel it through the kidneys, of course. Well, that's damaging, right? So we have this message of milk does a body good. Exactly how?
Right.
And what body? Not this body, not your body.
Right.
Not anybody who's watching this. A cow's body, sure.
Yeah.
But not our bodies.
I think the meat thing people get, you know, yeah, it's inflammatory, it's saturated fat, there's no fiber in it. But the milk thing and the dairy, you know, the cheese, that's difficult for people. They don't really understand why they need to pass on that.
Yeah, and when we break it down, and that's one of the things that we have a day or a dedicated class in the Forks Over Knives on calcium, vitamin D, that whole thing. And people just, wow, you know, we start by watching the movie on the first class, and then we kind of break it down every class after that and really we dig in. And when people realize what animal proteins are doing to your body and what needs to happen for them to get out of your body, that's a rough road, man. And you're right, with all the saturated fat and, oh my God, the lack of fiber geek in the world. We could talk days about that, but you know, and people say, oh, you know, there's all these vitamins in animal products and there's all these nutrients. Well, you know where they got it?
Right.
The ground.
Right. The cows were eating it. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're just eating the middleman or the middle animal.
Exactly. So where would people start if they want to switch over to a plant-based diet or a vegan diet? Where do they begin?
Well, there's a few things. So there's 3 films to watch. Forks Over Knives, of course. Game Changers.
That was great.
Yeah, that focuses, if somebody has not seen that yet, it focuses mainly on athletes, and it has kind of a male twist to it. That really helps the guys. It's a fantastic film. James Cameron.
And my kids watch it with me, and they're athletes. And my 18-year-old son, he's been doing some vegan cooking. It's pretty cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I actually posted them on the Forks Over Knives group. I've posted twice on the stuff that he's prepared for us. It's crazy.
I love it. Now you have a helper in the kitchen.
Yeah, he's awesome.
That's fantastic.
I said, you need to open your own plant-based cafe.
Oh, could you please? Can you do it here in St. Louis?
Yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah, so it's really influential, that Game Changers.
It really, really was, and perfect name for the movie. Jim Loomis, who is my friend who we put on that summit, who works at PCRM, he's the medical director here also at the Center for Plant-Based Living, and he was in it. So, and then also the newest movie, Code Blue.
Oh,
Please watch. It was just released. Dr. Saray Stancic. she worked on that film for 5 years. I can remember when we were talking about that 5 years ago, and she's like, I'm going to do this movie. And I was like, wow, okay. And every year that I see her at this conference, we talk on social media a little bit, and you know, she was there with her film crew a couple of years ago, and it was just one of those things that I knew was always going to happen, but never knew when. I mean, it takes a lot of money, a lot of time, and she's a practicing physician.
Wow.
And her movie is about how she reversed all of her symptoms of MS, and how she's helping people with MS.
Was she in one of the other movies?
She's probably in.
There was one called Eating You Alive on YouTube. I don't know if that was her or not, but I thought that was impressive. I actually try to talk to my patients that I see in the urgent care that have MS and stuff. Look into a plant-based diet. I mean, with rheumatoid arthritis, all of those inflammatory conditions, just do your research. I mean, just advocate for your own health. Do some research on it. So they watch these movies. What's the next step?
Watch the movies, and then in your town, look for a cooking class. Look for that in-person support. I am just kicking off virtual classes, and I will be doing 101 classes. I'll be doing, you know, tofu classes, I'll do tempeh classes, I'll do, you know, what's seasonal classes, you know, all these different classes. So our shop here is going to offer classes. And then, you know, and I think, you know, of course, there's so many books out too. You know, if you love to read or you love to do the audio books, How Not to Die by Michael Greger, the newest book, Fiber Fueled by Dr. B. Gosh, of course, Forks has a bunch of books, and Dr. Barnard has a bunch of books. So really, along those lines as well. And if you have watched as many movies as you want to, and you don't want to pick up another book, and you're just kind of overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, this is where you start. You start with fiber. And this is very, very easy. You just start with fiber. So what is fiber? It's plant roughage. That's all it is. So what you do.
Meat, neither one of them have fiber.
Sorry, meat, yes. You will never find any animal products that have fiber, ever. It's only in plants, only in plants.
What benefits will people see when they switch over? And like, I was talking to Dr. Bernard, and he said people will notice benefits from switching their diet in 2 weeks. So that's pretty impressive. What benefits can they expect to see?
I would say even less than 2 weeks. The reason I say that is because I am a presenter at Total Health Immersions every year. This is a plant-based health immersion that has been going on for 8 or 9 years now. And it's down in Naples, Florida in the fall. And we have pretty sick people who come into that, and who've had type 2 diabetes for 20 years. I mean, you know, and really they have really tumbled in their health. I see people titrate down on their type 2 medications by half within a week. Now this immersion is only 7 days long, and it's physician led. Okay. So we do have physicians on staff who, you know, we have people who pass out every year during lectures because they come in taking so many meds for their blood pressure. And then they're on this whole food plant-based diet when they're with us. And now their blood pressure is super low because they've lowered it by eating well, and they're on these copious amounts of pills to lower it, and they're toppling over. And I'm not making fun of that at all, but we just know that it happens every year. So we see it, and then the doctors address it, and, you know, but I see it, and I mean, people pass out in the first 4 days sometimes, you know, so I see it in a matter, you could say hours, really. Yeah, no, it's immediate, and we are such society now, and I'm guilty of instant gratification. We want something, we order it right now. Right. You know, I mean, we want something, and I will tell you, a whole food, plant-based way of eating, lifestyle, diet, whatever word you want to use, is the most progressive and also the most conservative at the very same time. Mm-hmm. It'll get you from A to B so quickly, and it will have zero side effects.
Yeah.
So it's safe and it's fast, and it's such a lovely thing.
Yeah, it's powerful. So what do you recommend when people are switching over, like transition? What's an easy way to transition? Any transition foods that they can add in?
So one thing that I like to tell people when they come in and they're like, you know, I've watched the movies, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to start. I tell them to start with fiber. That's the only number you need to look at. Don't look at calories, don't look at fat, don't look at anything. Make sure it's a plant and just look at fiber. And I want you to keep a journal for the next 3 weeks. And I know it's a pain. Nobody wants to write anything down or keep it in their phone or whatever. This is not a forever thing, I promise. Write down your fiber every single day. Make sure you get 20 grams of fiber every single day for this first 7 days. And people say, oh my God, 20 grams of fiber, what is that? Oh, you will get it at breakfast, I promise.
Yeah.
And don't just get 20. Like if you can go over 20, then go get at least 20.
Right.
And for the next 7 days, so you're in week 2, 30 grams of fiber every single day. The next week, you're in week 3, 40 grams of fiber every single day. Mm-hmm. And then if you can keep going 40 to 50 after that, great. But what you're doing when you're doing that is you are no longer saying, no, you can't have this, or no, you can't have that.
Right.
You're just going to see your plate kind of shift from more colors and more plants to eking out a little bit more of the animal products. If you still have animal products on your plate, that's fine, whatever.
It's a process.
It's a process, of course it is. So I say up the fiber every week by 10 grams. Okay. And then you will start to see a shift in your health, mm-hmm. the way you feel. And the only thing you're counting is fiber.
Is there any supplements people need to take when we switch over to this kind of diet?
If you are not eating any animal products at all, I would suggest B12 and look up that amount that you need. But also if you are switching your diet, and I mean, even if you're not switching your diet, you should go get your panel done and see, you know, what's happening. Some people will say take a vitamin D, and in this area in St. Louis, and people do it for 6 months when, you know, the sun isn't shining really. But that's, you know, if you're low, take a D. But also with the whole vitamin B12 thing, that's a bacteria that's found in the dirt. So it doesn't really come from the animals. It's just the animals eat the dirt or they're injected with vitamin B12 now. And that's how we get it. So it's not really an animal byproduct. But also most or newer studies have shown that as we age, we lose the ability to absorb vitamin B12. So you could be the biggest carnivore in the world walking around and still not be able to metabolize that B12 correctly. And it's very, 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 very important to make sure that you're getting that. You just need a little, but you absolutely need it. So even if you are not on a plant-based diet or anywhere close, mm-hmm. next time you see your doc, please do add that to your blood work request.
That's a good one for sure. I wanted to mention with the intermittent fasting, I think we might have talked about that last time we talked. I was listening to Dr. Greger this morning on Rich Roll. You got to watch that. Anyway, he mentioned he's doing that study for his new book, How Not to Diet. And he has a whole chapter apparently on intermittent fasting. Yes. And he kind of just summarized it a little bit. I found it really interesting. He said research has shown it's actually better to eat breakfast, eat the meals earlier, and actually skip dinner. Mm-hmm. And you actually burn more calories if you eat the exact same food in the morning as if you were at night. So the same meal, same calories, yep. But eating it earlier, you burn off more calories, burn it off quicker. I watched so he does his kind of the same presentation at all these different conferences.
And for a long time, he did the How Not to Diet presentation. And it's great. I mean, you could listen to it 50 times and not get bored of it. It's great.
Yeah.
So I watched him as he, for the first time, put on his How Not to Diet presentation. Blew me away, blew us all away at this conference, and learned so much from that. And he did talk about that. You wake up and you eat like a king, then you eat like a prince, then you eat like a pauper as the day goes on. And it is different. Yeah, your body does work differently as the day progresses.
Yeah, that is such good knowledge. And then, he also talked about the circadian rhythm, your circadian rhythm, how it all works. It's huge. It's interesting stuff. So let's just talk the last question I have, and then we'll just do a little rapid round for fun. What is the one thing people can change today that would most impact their life?
Fiber, adding fiber. Mm-hmm. Yep, and that will be the quickest too.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we're going to do a little rapid round just to have some fun. Since you're not going to have turkey on Thanksgiving, what do you guys have on Thanksgiving?
Sometimes I will make those lentil roasts.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta tell you, because I like to cook now, who knew? I like to make a ton of just sides, like a big quinoa salad or a big, you name it, like, cornmeal muffins, a big thick mushroom gravy. Just Thanksgiving to me in my head is a big table of friends and family sitting around and just kind of like passing things around. I want to try this. I want to try this. I want to try this. And it's really not, to me anymore, I guess because I've been doing this since 2008, it's not really about the turkey. It's about sitting down with people you love and sharing a meal and having a good time cooking it. And also, here's the thing. I know that turkey is not good for me. Right. So, I'm not missing it. Still make mashed potatoes or cauliflower or whatever it is, but I just like to have fun in the kitchen and share it with my friends and family.
Right. When you think about the centenarians, the people that live till they're 100, that was a lot of their diet is plant-based, and it's a lot about community, spending time together, connection, and it all adds into how long they live. So they're not having much turkey either.
No, those blue zones are pretty magical places.
Yeah. So if perhaps you went to a fast food restaurant, what would you, which one would you choose, and what would you have?
Oh my gosh, it's been so long. So, an easy one would be like, could I say Chipotle? Does that even count? That probably doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the thing. With Chipotle, they have that sofritas, whatever stuff, lots of oil in there. So I would just go for the black beans, lots of salsa, greens. I think they have some quinoa. So, I just go with the stuff that I recognize. When we talk about this, interestingly enough, because this is something we talk about in the Forks program, a lot of people say that they go to, what is it, Arby's or Wendy's? One of the two. Somebody has really good baked potatoes.
I think it's Wendy's.
Is it Wendy's?
I haven't had one. I think it is Wendy's.
Okay, then there you go. They get the baked potato, and I guess maybe they also have salsa or something. I'm not really quite sure. Not that that's like a really well-rounded meal, but if you're sitting there, if you're on the road, and you just grab it, you're making the best choice you can.
Is there too many carbs in this diet? I know a lot of people say, oh, there's, everything is just carbs. How can you, lose weight and be healthy with all these carbs?
Hey, there's a carb and there's a carbohydrate, there's a carb, which is like, I say carbs are bad, carbohydrates are good, right? Carbs to me is like the simple sugars, the pretzels, the candy, the fruit juices. The carbohydrates are beautiful. That's what you find in all these whole beautiful foods. That's true energy for you. That's fiber fueled for you. No, a whole food plant-based diet is going to be about 75 to 80% carbohydrates. That's what's going to fuel this brain of yours. You know, that's what's going to fuel your body. If you go low carb, then what are you going to live on?
Right. Yeah. Well, people find a way, but it's not necessarily the right way. So if we're not eating dairy, especially like with kids too, where do we get it? Where do we get our calcium, and are we getting enough?
Yeah. Yes. So there's dark leafy greens, of course. And there's also fortified milks, fortified plant-based milks. So when you're getting a plant-based milk, make sure that you're getting an unsweetened plant-based milk, because we all know that added sugar is not optimal. So get a unsweetened fortified milk. If you are drinking orange juice, then make sure it's fortified. Why not? But yeah, you're getting plenty in your greens as well.
Okay.
Greens and beans, or greens and grains.
What's the best way to prepare tofu and make it edible? I honestly, I haven't made it yet. I'm a little nervous just by looking at it, and I don't know what to do with it. So what's the best way to make it?
Go to my website. You know what? For me to say the best way is, I mean, there's so many ways to do that. You know, I make cheese out of it. I make just the little blocks that you throw in a stir fry. But you know, if you're really new to it and you just want to add it to a dish, you can buy those pre-marinated little blocks at the grocery store. You'll find it in the produce section, and they're in those little vacuum packs. You can go home and just cut them up and throw them into your salad if you just want to get a starter way. I mean, that's not really a delicious thing, but you're gonna have other things in your salad, right? You know, your dressing, but you know what? Just I would Google tofu 101 recipes, and I have several on my website. I just did a kebab, a pineapple tofu kebab with peanut sauce. And it's very few ingredients. It's very doable. You can choose to bake the tofu, or you can just use raw tofu.
And you mentioned fiber as being the thing that would most impact our life. What are the best sources of fiber, or, you know, just give me an idea for people what good sources of fiber are.
So because fiber is only going to be in plants, you're going to find more concentrated sources in whole foods, in whole plants. So eating the entire whole food. What do I mean by that? So let's take oatmeal, right? Whole grain, like those whole rolled oatmeal or whole rolled oats that'll, you'll see in the store, not the 5-minute oats. Okay. So not the quick oats.
Not the packet with the honey and sugar and brown sugar in there?
Yeah, no.
I like that.
The whole oats. It might say old-fashioned oats. That's the same thing. Okay. So you're going to get more bang for your buck out of that whole food. You're going to find more fiber in a whole apple instead of applesauce or apple juice. You're going to find more fiber in an orange rather than orange juice. So stick with the whole food.
Okay. What about smoothies? I mean, a lot of people are into smoothies, and I always thought it was better to eat the whole fruit as far as sugar and just getting the fiber. But are smoothies still a healthy choice?
Listen, I would like to see somebody eat or drink a smoothie over having a steak, yes. But I'm not a big proponent of smoothies. A couple of reasons. Number one, Dr. Esselstyn on his website, please go there. He has a great paper on smoothies. Okay. But a couple of reasons I don't like to do it is because, well, actually, yeah, a couple of reasons. If you take 2 apples, an entire, I don't know, bag of spinach, if you will, I don't know, like an apple, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. I mean, if you lay out your smoothie on the table and then you put it in your blender and you drink it, do you think that you could like really eat all of that? Do you really think you could eat those 2 apples and that orange and that banana and that 2 tablespoons of peanut butter? Maybe so, that's easy to do. All of these greens. That's a lot of food right there. And it's very easy to eat that. So then you have all those calories, and it's easily digested, even though there is a lot of fiber in there. So it is going to fill you up, really not for that long. And then you're going to be eating in an hour, right? So I'm not if a lot of, I have some nurses who come in here and some people who have these kind of crazy jobs where they can't sit down and eat. I totally get that. That's totally fine. Just as long, if that has to be your lifestyle, then that's got to be your lifestyle. And I'm happy that you're choosing the greens over some other kind of crappy food that you get out of a vending machine. But we don't really do too much of that here at the shop, because I like to teach people how to cook the whole food, because I like to help people to take control of their health.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for talking with me today.
You bet.
Find you and your classes, information about you.
So the website is all letters. So get out a pen, and it's CPBL for Center for Plant-Based Living, CPBL-STL.com.
Awesome. All right. Thanks. I'll talk to you next time.
Okay. Thanks, Kim. Bye.